The first thing that I want to cover is this particular topic within XLS forms. One is how to make this particular form. In this form, what you will see is you can put your organizational logo. So here I've put Hub, which is our logo. You can choose to put your organization logo also, which kind of lends a bit more credibility, especially when you're rolling out this form with your volunteers and your team members. Second thing that you will learn is how to use the date format. Okay. So in the how to use date as an option, and how to make it read only. So whenever somebody is filling in the form, what happens is people are given the option to put in the date. So they can't change the date, and the date is going to be by default today. We'll talk to you about how to put text. In the age, we'll talk to you how to make an integer field with validation. So in this particular form, we are trying to capture information of people should be enrolling into the livelihood program. Livelihood program would usually operate between the age of 18 to 40. So you don't want data to be captured for an age which is below or above that. So you need to put a validation. For example, if somebody puts in 10 years, you automatically know that this particular age does not qualify for this form. This helps you to ensure that your quality of the form is intact and it is not compromised. And we'll teach you how to do select one, where you're able to put in different options in this select one. And these are very foundation, but very important to do more complex things. Select many is in qualification, wherein they can select whether in class 10, 12, graduation or diploma. This gives you the option of how to put in select many. Then you have this question of to whether they want to enroll in this particular program. The reason why we have put this question is because if they select yes, then the other questions show. If they have no, then the other questions won't show. This is quite useful for the people who are filling in long format form. This is called skip logic. So if you put yes, then the skip logic takes you to the course information. And within the skip logic, you have got different drop downs. So you've got a course, and there are three courses: microfinance, vocational, and agriculture. If I click microfinance, then based on the microfinance selection, then I will have two courses coming in. Everything will not show. This is one challenge that you will be facing in an application like a Google form, where you will not be able to put a lot of conditional logics. You may be able to put in these all the options, but to show that, okay, if I select vocational, how do I get these three? And how if I select agri, how do I get these two? So this term is called choice filter. So I'm going to cover, so in this bracket, you will see what all are we talking about. Okay. So now let's move into how do we make this particular form. This is what an XLS form looks like. So this is the final output. After this session, we will be sharing with you a template. What's a template? Template is a basic set of fields. So we will be sharing a document which will have row number 1, 2, 3, and 4. This you can just copy and just follow. What we will try to do in this particular session is try to understand what each field means. So I'll just take you through this particular section, which you will see in the template. Type. What is type? Means the type of question that you want. So the question can be a text type, it can be integer type, it can be a drop down where you want to select one, it can be a drop down where you want to select many. So there are multiple types. Name and label. Now, if you see that in this particular form that I showed you, there is something called age, bracket, integer with validation. Now, if you remember the school books, you would put a label. So label is what in the outside, what you are defining it looks like. But in the inside, it can be different, which means that when you are getting somebody to fill in the data, they get to see whatever you put in this label. You can put this, you can put anything. But in the back end, if you put if you put the name, okay, the name is what is going to identify what that particular column will look like. That is what is the difference between name and label. Label is what the user sees, name is what in the backend as a column header. Data is data that is captured in the backend. For example, whenever you are creating an XLS form and rolling it out, a form might be 200 questions, 50 questions, 10, maybe 100. Now, each of them should have an ideal time of completion, because you actually field officers, while we want them to behave in a certain manner, there are chances that everybody tries to find shortcuts to fill in data. So the start and end time is the system's way of telling you what is the start and end time of that particular form. So it is not going to get captured, but in the backend, it is going to get auto captured. So like I said, this will be part of the form itself. So first we will cover date. As I said, type defines the type of field. If you use Google Sheets, start and end will give you the default time that the form was open and the default time that the form was closed. Then you will have this particular field, which is a logo field. This also we will give you, and we will tell you where to upload your logo. Everything else remains the same. Now we'll move on to the next one, which is name and age. You will have something called a format. The format can be number, it can be percentage, it can be text. Now these, and it can be date, it can be time. So these are formats that you find. You will find something like this in Excel also. So type defines what is the type of the field that you want. So in this case, I want a date type of field. So that is what I'm going to capture. Now in the date type of field, I'm going to capture the date. Like I said, name is what, if once the data is captured and you download the data, you need to see the data in a certain format. Every format that gets downloaded has a column value. So there is a header value. Okay. Now, what is a header value that will look like? So if there is this name and label, now if I get the data here, if you see based on, if I put name as my header will look like date. Okay. And then I will have the date here. If I change this as date underscore 1, then my header value will look like date underscore 1. So what my header looks like is what I define as name. So if you have two dates, let us say if you have a date when a child is enrolled to a course and you want a date of form filling, so you can have a name which is called date application, and then you can have date of enrolled. You can have two different names. So name is where you're defining that. Label is what the user sees. So this is what the user sees. That is label. So these two are done. Here you might be wondering, how is the default name? Today is the 29th. How is it showing 29 directly? The answer is it's showing 29 because there is a field called calculation. So anything that I am telling the system to calculate has to come under this particular field of calculation. If you look carefully in under calculation, I have instructed that the value be today, which is today's value. So the system by default will pick up today's value. What do they think they mean when they say the term required? So required means necessary or not. So is this field, is it mandatory or not? Since this is a default value, the answer is yes, it is mandatory. If you don't want a field to be mandatory, then you put term this as false. So calculation means you were telling the system as to what it is, what they want to calculate, and then required is you are telling the system whether this particular entire row is required or not required. The next is name. The name is text value, and in the text value, you are like defining the header should be name. I am just reiterating this so that you get this correct. So here it's going to be name. So when you are saving, the data will come to you like this. It is come on to be date and then name. And then what it will look like is name, like capital N. What it is saved here, the data is going to be downloaded with a small n. So if you look here carefully, name, which is the backend data, is small name, label is capital name. Do you need the date? Do you need this data to be filled mandatorily? The answer is yes. So under the required section, I am going to put this as true. So we were at age. Age had the type as integer, the name as age, which means here the value is going to be age. The label is what the user sees, which is age. And here you will see a new factor, which is called a constraint. Now, constraint is different from calculation. Calculation is when I'm telling the system to perform a certain operation and show it to the user. So calculation here was today. Constraint is when I'm telling the system that please ensure that the value that you are capturing is between a certain range. That is called constraint. Many of you may have used other platforms to bring this here. So here you would see that there is the age is between to 40. The constraint is created here. There is a dot. Now, what is dot? Dot means the current value. You have to telling the system that whatever value is captured, that should be greater than equal to 18 and it should be less than equal to 40. That is what is in the system. So I can have other options like this. I want values greater than equal to 18. or I can have this where I can say that it should be all values should be greater than 0, or I can say that value is less than 100. There are various type of constraints that I can do. All of them have a dot. In case there is this AND operator and there's an OR operator, all of you may be familiar. So you can have any value. So even if you were to put, this will basically capture all, not the right thing, or. So you can have and you can have or. Now, depending on the situation, you will use this.
Excuse me.
Yes, please.
So I have a question. Now here we are entering an age. So obviously no one will enter a decimal value. But if we also want to ensure that it is like a specific number, it's not all the numbers between 18 and 40, then can we put a comma, and is there anything added on to this constraint? How do
So
you do?
then if you have a very specific number, I would suggest that you use something called a select. Like you have a drop down instead of having an open value, correct? So if you have a drop down, I'll cover that in the next point. Select one. So you can have all your numbers that is in a particular range captured in a drop down, which they can select from there itself. I spoke about constraints, and then there's this constraint message, which means that if somebody is entering a wrong number, so for example, here if I've entered 10, I have to be told, please enter age between 18 to 40. That is what is a constraint message. So entering age between 18 to 40 is a constraint message. Required, like we discussed, is whether this particular row or this question is required or not. Answer is yes, it is required. So we will put this. There is an option called hint, which basically gives a hint here. And you see this very light color. Now gender. So gender is a select one option. Now this is something that you should understand very well. That the form has two fields. Like I said, we'll be giving you the template. The form has two sheets. One is a survey sheet, one is a choices sheet. Survey sheet is where I define what my questions look like. But when you are making this particular code, it is as if you are having a conversation with the system. So you have to tell the system, hey, do this. For example, in this particular constraint, I am talking to the system and saying that please ensure that the value that is entered is greater than 18 and less than 40, less than equal to 40. In this particular type, this is the first that you are finding. And ma'am, the question that you're asked about decimal, what you can do here is that you can have a select one. Select one is the command where you're asking system to select one. Select one from where? Select one from gender underscore choice. Now, where is gender underscore choice? Gender underscore choice is under this tab, which is choices, the second tab, which you can see. Here you have to define gender choice, and then you have to say that, okay, these are the names. This is the gender choice. The logic I defined before, what is name, what is label, in the previous survey continues to hold true here. So you will have names and labels. What is name, what is label is what gets captured, what doesn't get captured. So here, male, female, other, this is the label. And what gets captured in the backend is the name. So I hope this point is clear. First is the form has two sheets. One is survey, one is choices. Choices will have all your choices like your that you want to get captured. Like for example, there are qualifications which you can see here. They will form choices that you want to represent them. Then there are courses which you want to feature as your choices. Then you want sub courses within the choices, within the courses to feature under this. So even all of these will come under choices. Anything that you want to be shown under the form will come under survey. Any questions here, please? This is like very critical.
Is there a way to enter the name of the choices? Like I can see you've used underscore or something. So is there a format to enter this, or we can write anything?
You can write anything, but for good order, it is better to see, especially why we have put underscore. So you can put class and 10, correct? Can you see this?
Yeah.
Okay. Now what happens is then when you are analyzing the data later, if you have spaces, then it becomes tougher for you to work on it. So it is always good to maintain a string is what our suggestion would be. Correct? Like a single stretch. So class underscore 10 under name. The label can be anything. So if you see the label is class 10th here, but what gets captured if you select class 10th is 10. This can also be 10. So in the backend value will be 10. You can put this also, you can put blanks, you can put underscore, you can put anything, but it depends on your particular case, whatever works. There are no set logics to this, but keep it at a meaningful level. So now that we have understood this being a critical part, we are telling the system select one from gender choices, which I've showed you right now. You will name that particular field as gender, which means that now if I look at my file value, this will be gender in small. Okay, this is how the data will show. Correct. Gender label, what the label looks like is going to be gender. Whether it is required or not, the answer is yes, it is required. It is true. Moving on to the next one is where you saw there was selecting multiple. This was selecting one. You can only select one at any point in time. Correct. But you can select multiple when it comes to qualification. So you will have to have option where you're able to select multiple. So you tell the system, just like you told the system select one, you tell the system select multiple. This is the statement. This is the type, select multiple. From the system will ask, okay, from where do I select multiple? You say that select multiple from qualification. Where is the qualification? Qualification is here. So here there are qualifications from here to here. Each qualification has a name and label. So now when you are creating this particular form, they will feature in the form itself. Is it required? The answer is yes, it is required. It is true. After this, we move on to the next one, which is asking the system whether they want somebody to enroll to this program or not. Depending on the answer, yes or no, you will have the other questions coming up. This is straightforward. And when we give you this particular form, we will by default give you few of these already in the choices section. We will give you some of these so you can just directly use it. One very interesting thing that I would recommend is that whenever you're creating this particular XLS form, what we would always say is that if you have one select question, like select one underscore yes and no, here you're telling the system to select one option from yes underscore no, correct? And then you're telling the system, please go to the choices. Under choices, go and look for yes underscore no and just display the ones that are there in this particular thing. If you have a similar question of yes and no, maybe 2 or 3 more times during your form creation. You do not have to create more yes and no options. Okay, so you don't have to go and create okay yes and no underscore 2 because I've already used a yes and no. No, you don't need to do that. You just need to tell the system every time to take a look at this yes and no. If it is common, the system just needs to figure that. It doesn't matter if you whether it is one or it is two. Ideally, just keep it as one, especially the most common ones like gender, qualification, etc. Just keep it under one. I'm going to ask, okay, if it is yes and no, then if they want to enroll the program, yes and no, then please select it. Interesting point here is that all of you, when we were small, we would be taught stuff like in algebra, if x is equal to 10, or let's say a value is x, y, z, okay, and the value is 10, 20, 30. What is x plus y? 30. Great. So why did we get x plus y as 30? I didn't tell you to do 10 plus 20. I told you x plus y is 30 because the value of x that is captured is 10. Value of y that is captured is 20. So x plus y is 10 plus 20. Now, why am I telling you this? Because when you come to this particular form, you will see that a lot of these things are names, which means names are equal to x, y, z. So you can just replace it with x, y, z. So it's just like that. So these are all values. So if I say gender is male, that means for that particular form, the value of gender is always going to be male. That is a value that is getting captured because that's a unique value. If I'm saying enrollment is yes, which means that the enrollment underscore q is always going to be yes. That is the equation.
Can I ask one question?
Yes, please.
So in the type, you said select one and then there is a yes or no. I can see in the choices, there are sub choices and there are many like the name of the heading is still a sub course and there are many options in that. So how will the form know which one to choose? Like in the different colors you have, right?
Sub course is different. So sub course is different than course. In the course, you are telling the system, please show microfinance, vocational training, agriculture. Now, if somebody is selecting the course microfinance, then you have to tell the system to show appropriate subcourse. which means that I have this value is course here. Let me color this as green here. This course and this course. Can you see these two greens?
Yes.
Okay, so they are matching. Why are they matching? They are matching because I am telling the system that if somebody is selecting microfinance, which is this color, then please show them all the values under this color, which means if somebody is selecting microfinance, then the subcourse will only be restricted to micro insurance and financial education.
Okay.
So if somebody is selecting vocational training programs, then they will get to see this training program, the options under vocational training program. Now we were asking the user, please tell us whether you want to enroll to this particular program. The answer they will say is yes or no. Why is the answer relevant? Why was I explaining the concept of X and Y? The X and Y was X was 10, Y was 20. Here, enroll underscore Q, here, enroll underscore Q, this is equivalent to the X that I showed you. So the value of enroll underscore Q is if it is yes. Can you see this? This is the X and Y that I was explaining to you. Then the value of X, they are telling the system if the value of enroll underscore Q is yes, only then will you show these groups. I hope you understood this. I am starting a group. What is the group? The group is that of the course. Correct. This is a group. So course information is a group. But will the course information show if I'm putting no? No, it will not show. Will it show if it is yes? Yes. How is it happening? It is happening because I'm telling the system that please show this. It is relevant. Relevant means only show this if the enrollment underscore Q is yes. That is the logic. Now I'll backtrack a bit. Group is when you're putting 2-3 questions together. It's quite straightforward. So you can just begin a group and end the group and put all the questions under that together. This is the group which is there. Say begin group, give the group a name, give the group a label, and say that the group is only relevant if the value of NQ is yes. Within the group, I will ask questions about the course. Now we will focus on course only. Select one under, so here the course is what they see as a drop down, which is microfinance and agri. So you're telling the system, hey, please select one, show the user one course, which is in under choices. So I look for course and the system will look under choices. Okay, let me look for courses. So the system will say, okay, look for courses. It will look for course and it will say, okay, if for courses, I will show them microfinance, vocational, agri. This is done. Then the system will say, okay, now if they select microfinance, then what should the subcourse look like? Then you're telling the system, okay, if they select microfinance, then the subcourse has to look different. Correct? How do you define that as different? Let us go from the beginning. I have to tell the system, so select one subcourse. The name is going to be subcourse underscore course ID. The label is going to be subcourse. Here, there's an interesting point of relevant. Is this relevant? The question is only show this particular question if it meets the relevant criteria. That is what relevant means. If I were to expand it, show this question if it meets this particular relevant criteria. This particular question is only relevant if it meets this criteria. In this case, the course information question was, or the group, it was relevant. It would be relevant only if it is meeting the enroll underscore Q is equal to yes. Similarly, the course sub ID is relevant only if the course meets this particular criteria. So let us try to decode this symbol for you. What does this mean? This means that course is equal to blank because there are two quotes. The value of course is equal to blank. Like X is equal to blank. This is blank. Okay. Now, when I put an exclamation mark in front of it, what do you think it becomes?
Not blank, maybe.
Not blank. Exactly. So here it is relevant only if the course is not blank. If the course is blank, then this will not show. If it's putting some value in the course, only then you should show the subcourse, correct? Logically. So the subcourse will show only if this course is blank. So this itself will come as selecting. Now, choice filter. When you say choice filter, it's got two words, right? Choice and filter. What is choice Choice is this choice that you see here. And then what is filter? Filter means you are filtering a value. Anybody who's used Excel would know that you are filtering a value. So choice filter means please help the system filter the choices based on a certain value. Now, if I go and create a certain document here in Excel, if I were to create a document here, gender, say male, female. If I were to do a filter, I will go press filter, click filter here, go to gender. And if I want only male, I will have to do this, correct? And I will get a filter. What did I do? I told the system, please look at the entire value and give me only when it is M. That means whenever I'm doing filter, I have to give a very specific value. Exactly what I'm doing in this case also. I'm telling the system that look at the choices, the choice filter. Choice filter has something called a course, which means that it's got a course. Okay. Look for in the course, it has to be the course ID. Course ID is, if I give you the X and Y logic, course ID is what you see here. So whatever value gets captured here, that has to match the course. So the course is the course is this course. So if I see here, I put a filter on this course. Please look at this course. In the survey, I'm telling the system, please go and do a filter on where it is equal to the course ID. So in the course ID, I may end up selecting microfinance. Then the system will go and look at the choice filter and do a search on microfinance program. So what are the options that come in? Micro insurance and financial education. Let us go back to our form. What does system do? I am selecting microfinance. What are the options that come in? Micro insurance and education. Now, if I tell the system, hey, do a filter on agriculture and farming, then what does the system do? It gives you crop production and livelihood stock. So what am I doing here in my form? I'm doing agri, and what is coming? Crop production and livestock management. So that is exactly what it means, right? In the sense, choice filter means you're filtering your choices.
I have a question. Your format that we are using is dollar and curly brackets, right? When do we use this particular, like whenever dollar and curly brackets?
Dollar curly bracket is a standard thing. Is every time you're calling a variable, you'll be using dollar and curly bracket. So if this I call it X also, this will become dollar curly bracket and X.
Okay, got it. Because in the constraint, we are not using dollar and curly bracket to mention.
In the constraint, you are using dot. Dot means the present value.
Okay.
Run through so that we are able to, all of you have now access to the this document. Let me give you access to this base file. This has all the values. Now the first question, I need to make the question name, this particular name, okay, in this form, name. What do you think text represents here? This is text. We saw that the age had a constraint of 8 to 40. Remember that the present value is represented with a dot. And feel free to refer to the previous document, but type it out. The constraint, all of you are giving greater than equal to, so just keep the equal to also. The value has to be greater than equal to 18 and the value has to be less than equal to 40. Okay, clear? Great. Let's move to the next point, which is we are doing a selecting one. Now select one means you're asking the system select one from where. So your system has to know that, right? So what is the answer here? Go to the choices sheet. You're telling the system gender, correct? So what is the name in the gender? Look at the list name and then you have to say what the answer is. So it is gender underscore choice. You can choose to put any name. You can also choose to, when you make your own form, you can put anything. Okay, you can just put gender and then that value gets called. But in this particular case, the answer is select one from gender underscore choice.
I have a question. How will the computer or the system know that it has to look in that particular column for gender choice? Is it always
programmed that way, no? So it is programmed that whenever you put select one, whenever see the computer listen, this is an Excel that you will upload to an application. Say you use DataOGram, our application, or Kobo, or some other application. When you upload it, they have trained that okay, when you see this instruction, do a certain set of activity. Now, moment you see select one, the next logic is select one under choices. That is by default. Whenever you see a select one, select multiple means the system has to look under this particular sheet itself. And when it's looking for this particular sheet, then you have to say where is the choice.
So it will by default look in the first column itself. It will not go
First column, yeah. See list name. It will look in the list name. So this also you have to retain the same name. We'll be sharing this template. You have to retain the name, list underscore name and label. It will look here only. It will go with the header. Not first call. It will look for the header basically. Okay. Okay. Now moving on to select multiple, and then I've got some. So can you just put the value here? What is select multiple from qualification? So qualification in my sheet of choice, what should it be? Select multiple from choice, which means there'll be options. So can you just say what it is? Qualification. Okay, great. Now I have asked this question, where do you want to enroll? And there is a select one. So what should this be? The command is so select one. So can you just type out the command for me? So this is select one. Okay. So here we saw that I wanted to select one subcourse. So can you help me with the entire type, please, along with the command of select one and where to select it from. Great. So now I've put select one from subcourse, because whatever is the subcourse here is a subcourse here. And the final one on this is choice filter. So I explained to you that you have to tell the system to filter out from the choice. In this case, you have to tell the system to filter out the string. So you can take a look at the document here. And more than the answer, please try to understand this and ask a question. So you can type it out once for the choice filter.
I have a question.
Yes.
So this choice filter, it can refer to any of the columns in the choice sheet, right? We can go for any columns, not necessarily just the course column.
No. So the column that you're referring to, again, like I said, you're telling the system to filter. So the column has to have the same name, course and this. So you can add another column here, okay, called subcourse. And you may have something which is like a micro course. I'm just giving an example. Micro course is something under subcourse.
Okay.
In which case you can create that and then use subcourse as a reference and then call subcourse there. Yeah.
Then the subcourse should be equal, like
in
basically
your choice filter.
Okay. And then my course should be equal to that value. Then the subcourse should place it that way.
This subcourse will be equal to another value that you capture. So ideally, it should be the subcourse value, not the course value. Subcourse will be equal to subcourse value, because then you have to ask. Basically, here you are saying course is equal to course underscore ID, which means this course underscore ID is a value that is captured in this particular field. Similarly, here you are capturing the subcourse ID. So you have to create one more here where you are telling the system to select one micro course where the name is, let us say, micro course, where now in the choices you are putting micro course, you are putting subcourse here and mapping it to micro course, correct? So then you have to say that the subcourse, sub underscore course, is equal to sub underscore course ID, which means this subcourse ID will then define what the micro course is, correct? Understood?
You go to the choices sheet once just to see this.
Yeah. So I can put subcourse here, sub course. What's a subcourse is, let us say micro insurance is a subcourse, correct? So I can put micro insurance is subcourse. And within micro insurance, I can then say liability insurance or asset insurance.
Okay, I get it.
Now what we will do in this particular section, we will see how our form is coming to life. Just click on that, and so you will have some steps which are given. Step number 1. Now first thing is that you will see that there is an XLS form. You can click on it. After you click on it, go to file and make a copy. Make a copy with your name. Once you make a copy, you save this file as an XLS. All of you have access to hub.dataogram.com. You can use any username from room 1 to room 5. The password is test@1. Once I log in, I click on my project. I go to create form and upload the file. Give the file my name and select the file that I had downloaded. Now, if you go to this particular form, what I wanted to show to you was, once this form is done, then in the XLS form, I had gone and mentioned that the media is logo.jpg. Correct? There's going to be a logo, and under logo, you can have the media, which is logo.jpg. You will have to tell the system that where is this particular media. So the media is in the file section. So you go to settings, go to file section and upload your logo. Once you upload, then the form will show the logo. We're creating one more form. Here, we are going to do the same choice filter from a file. You will learn is how to use an external file to be able to make your form. So you can have an external file with previous information. For example, if you're dealing with students, you may have information about their age, their gender, and more information, which you may want to use in the current form itself. How are you going to use an external file? That is the primary learning from here. And the second is how to do calculation, and then how to do a quick if function. So very important, just quickly go through this once. If you see that in this particular form, there is an assessment date, which is today's date. I can change it because I can have an assessment on a previous day also. That is one. Here, if you see that Mary George has different students mapped to her, Amit has a different set of students mapped to her. The next is based on the student, the age will get pulled. So if I'm selecting Radhika, in the back end, the Radhika's age is defined as 30 and she's a female. Now, they are part of the livelihood micro assessment program. The data that we had captured in the baseline can be used in this particular form. Then we're going to talk about, if you remember, we had spoken about x plus x and y, x being 10, y being 20, x plus y is 30. So here you may have assessment which may have different scores. So theory may have 60, practical may have 50, the person may have scored 50. So the system can be trained or told to sum total two values of the theory as well as practical and get the total score. And based on the total score, you can also tell the system in the form that please automatically put a rating. Now, why do you do all this is because by default, when you are doing all the information at the form level itself, then you don't need to do all these calculations later. It's like a single data point, that single line row of values that you get captured. So I'll be running through the points which have already been covered, like start, end, note, date. The next thing is select one from teacher. This is also covered, where you're selecting one from teacher who's there in the choices section. The teacher in the choices section is Mary George and Amit Kumar. If you see that the other parts are all not here because the values are all in an external file. Where is the external file? The external file is here, which you'll be doing and uploading in the system later. So the first external file that we are referring to is the connection between the student as well as the teacher. Let's go to student list. Captures the name of the student, what the student label looks like, and the teachers map to that particular student. So what is going to happen is that I can look for students of Mary George. The system will go and look for the students of Mary George will show. So if it is Mary George, then the students of Mary George is showing. Okay, Joseph Sampson. If I select them, the next thing is that their age and the details are getting pulled up. So let us go to that now. Here I've got select teacher. The next thing is when I'm selecting the student. Now the student, like I said earlier, you had select one because you're telling the system select one because it is in the choices. But now it is not in the choices. Maybe you're dealing with of students. You can't put everything in the choices section. It gets very confusing. You might want to have an external file. So you're telling the system, please select one from file. So it is not just select one, it is select one from file. And just the way you were telling the system that go to choices and look for this particular value, here you're telling the system that, okay, select one from which file? It is student underscore list.csv. That is the name of the file. So select one from file and you got your name, label as before. In choice filter, it is the same as before, where we are mapping the teacher to the teacher ID. Okay. Is it required? The answer is true.
In the appearance, there was written minimal. So what is appearance?
Minimal is, if you see that in this particular thing, it is minimal. Can you see this? Can you see a difference between this and this? The way this is also a drop down, but since student list is going to be long, so you have put it as minimal. Otherwise, I will have 20 students listed here. Just the way this is.
Okay, got it.
We move on to this particular thing where a student is there. This is like for people who want to really unlock the value of XLS for themselves. This is the most important function. Okay, even other things you might be able to learn quickly. This is also very easy. Plus, understand this conceptually. Okay, what are we doing? We are, in this particular case, we are taking a value from an external file and putting it here. I'm doing an assessment. In the assessment, I can't go and ask for the child's age and gender every time because I've already got the information. So why not use my existing information to pre-populate my form instead of having to go through it again and again? That is the concept of this. So here is the age. We'll focus completely on the calculation section. The calculation that we have done so far is today, where we are telling the system what is to be done. In this case, the calculation is slightly different. Pull data. The meaning of pull data very clear. I am asking the system to pull data. Okay, pull data from where? Pull data from student underscore info. So what is student underscore info? Student underscore info dot CSV is the file from where the data has to be pulled. The next thing is I'm telling the system what to pull. The system will then look for age to be pulled, which means that in my file, I should have a column called age. That information will get pulled. Next, I'm telling the system that the system is asking me, you want me to pull the age, but whose age should I pull? Then you tell the system, please pull student's age. Which student? The student that is captured in the value, that is the dollar sign, dollar bracket. So what we did before, the X value, the Y value, the value that is there that is captured in the case is what gets pulled in. Let's just say what value I want, then it is match which value, and then this is the exact value to match. Let's go to the file. So here I am pulling the data for age. Similarly, I am pulling the data for gender, where I'm saying this. So gender, you can see I'm telling the system, pull it, get the data from student underscore info. There is a file name that you are saving, that this has to be exactly the same. You cannot have file name mismatches. Okay, and then you're saying this is needed. Let us see what the form looks like. Now the form is asking for the for theory and practical scores. This is brings back to our initial conversation of X and Y. So X is say Y is practical Y. If X is equal to 60, which is the score for theory, and practical score is Y, then the total is X plus Y, which is 60 plus 60, right? This is X plus Y, which is this plus this. This is what the answer is. Now, let us see what we have done in XLS form. What we are doing in XLS form is that we are capturing value. Instead of X, it is theory. Instead of Y, it is practical. The value is microinsurance theory, microinsurance practical. Any score depends on the paper, right? You could have a 80 marks paper, you could have a 100 marks paper. So depending on that, you have to put the validation. If you're doing a 50 mark paper, then your validation will be not 100, it's going to be 50. If you have a mark paper, then the validation is going to change. So please ensure that the validation is correct. What is validation? Validation is constraint, right? When you're putting the constraint that the value has to be in this, or else the system will not accept it. That is the constraint. Now that this is done, I've got two values, the practical value as well as the theory value. The total is now going to be auto-calculated. Auto-calculated, how? It is the X plus Y, and how it is done is like this. So it is theory plus practical is defined like this. I have to have a dollar sign, then I have to have an open curly bracket, put the value, which is theory in this case, close the curly bracket, plus, and then the practical value. That is the total. Here, in under the total, I get a certain value. Now, if theory is 50, practical is 50, total is 50 plus 50. Now, the value that is stored in total is 100. Now, I have to tell the system that if it is 100, then please give a rating to my student. What is the rating? The rating is that under everything under calculation. So if you see that you want the system to perform is all under calculation, starting from the date being today, to pulling the data, to adding two values, to doing a if statement where I am telling the system that if the value of the total is greater is 100, then what it is. Okay, let's just run this together. I'm putting this here. There is this value which is theory, and then there's value which is practical, and then there is total. So if theory is 50, practical is 50, total is 50 plus 50, 100. So now what is the rating? The rating is this if condition that you see. Can somebody suggest if it is 100, what is the rating? B minus. Okay, great. B minus. If it is 80, what is the value? If the total is 130, what is the rating? The rating is B, correct? Because the first thing that the system will do is total greater than 140. The answer is no. If it is no, then it will skip this. It will move into this. Is the total more than 100? Yes. Then it will go to B, else it will go to B minus. That is the logic. Great. So you have understood this logic. Now, that is the exact same if function that you will be using in your formula under calculation, and it will give you the result that you see in your form. So if your microfinance score is 80 and 8, then automatically the student gets a A rating, and then you can submit and the value gets stored. So Gloria asked a question where can I have different names like this? Is this what you mean? Student underscore info, age, student column, student. Yes. So can I call this student column? Can I call this student column? The answer is yes, you can call this anything, but whatever you call, you need to ensure that when you're pulling the data that you consistently. So if this is student underscore COL, then in your pull data as well, you need to put student underscore COL. Let us move to the phase where we come together and collaborate. This is the exercise and this is this form. Now let us look at this particular exercise. Now let's get started. People who you can see on the screen also, what do you think this sex is going to be? The first one that you see on the screen, top left, date is the right answer. Next, here I am the student ID, right? So I'm selecting one from file. So what should the be? Select one from files. If you look at this, select one from file. Now, what is this third one? This number, but it's integer, correct? Integer. What is the constraint? I have conducted an exam which is for 100 marks. So what should be the constraint? So the constraint is that this particular value has to be greater than 0 and less than 100. Coming back to the age, where is the pull data? So it is basically this same thing. Pull data, student info, it is age. I'm just going to select change as age. So it is info age student. Next, I've captured the theory and practical scores here. The total, what is this XXX? This I'm calculating the total score, which is theory and practical. So the answer is theory, correct. And finally, can you fill in this if condition? What is the value to be captured here? It's dollar total. Okay, thank you. So this is useful. You guys have understood this concept. So fabulous. Thumbs up for that. Any questions so far? So just click on the XLS. We'll take you through how to upload this. Go to File, Download XLS. Your hub, log in here. Click on Upload. Upload the file. Put in your name and upload the file that you have just downloaded. Once you do it, you get the form ready here. It's good to add entries. However, there are some files that need to be uploaded. So far, so good. So once you have completed this form, then I would request you to download the student list. Go to student list, put as CSV file. Just remember that whenever you are downloading a CSV, the system will by default rename it to dash. So file, put CSV, and then rename it just student underscore list, because that is how we are referring it to this in the system, correct? As CSV, comma separated value. Once you do that, you go to the second file, which is student underscore info, and save that as a CSV also. CSV. Ensure that you remove data and the dash. It has to be only student underscore info, nothing else. And finally, you'll have the logo. So you can download the logo as logo.jpg. Once you do it, you need to go to your form, go to settings, files, and upload the files that you have downloaded right now one by one. Please go to the settings section, go to files and upload the student info and student list. If you haven't saved the logo, it will come as this, like image. Once you do, then you will get to see the basic files and you're good to go. The last bit which I wanted to talk to you was about the multilingual feature. So this is like not complicated because you just need to add labels as English or Hindi, and you put your letters. And nothing changes in the backend. It is what they see. So they will see in their local language. That's it. This is very simple. Just quickly share in terms of what you do when you, if you people who are comfortable with XLS forms, you may, if you have one-off projects, you can use it on Kobo Toolbox. If you have complex projects where you need to manage files, where you need to manage teams, etc., then you will have to use some platforms like DataOGram or ODK. Depending on your budgets, you can go ahead and choose whichever one is relevant to you. For anybody who's there in this particular course towards the end, I presume that you guys are still interested in XLS form, and this is relevant to you. If you're looking for advanced XLS like workshops or data studio, or you are looking for a 1 month trial of the Hub app. If you want to opt in for the 1 month free subscription, then we'll be inviting you for the onboarding session next week for a 1 month free trial. I think that's it. These are my coordinates. Feel free to reach out to me for anything. We're happy to support. I hope the session was useful to you. Thank you so much.